I'm so happy to introduce Laura Deva. We are going to have a retreat with Laura in Estonia in autumn, in October, and it will be White Deep Retreat. Its name is Void. So I'm welcoming here Laura Deva.
Thank
Hello,
you,
Laura.
Bella. Hi, Bella. Thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me in Estonia, which is going to be my first time.
Yeah,
So,
I
yes,
know, I know.
I heard so much about this country and about the thirst of people there to know themselves better. So I'm excited. Many people, many colleagues have worked in Estonia, and everyone has been so satisfied. So, yeah.
Actually, we have very strong community here in Estonia, and this kind of word has spread over the world, and people are asking where is Estonia? And I have heard that there is very strong tantric community. So I'm so happy that you're coming to Estonia for the first time, and I know that we are going to have amazing retreats.
Thank you.
Yeah, but maybe a little bit I will open up our story. We met you, Laura, last year in Finland. I was having my ISTA first level in Finland, and then somehow we had this kind of beautiful connection. And then you invited me to collaborate this beautiful retreat in Estonia. So, but first, when we dig deeper in this retreat, maybe you a little bit open up your story, why you are feeling the call, conduct this kind of deep retreat, the name Void. What is your calling for that, for example?
Yeah, so void or the dark or the nothingness or the non-dual is actually the place that my heart longs to be all the time in intimacy with. And it's just a place where there's no more duality, where there's no more you and I. And this is how I want to meet the world and how I want to be in relationship with people and with everything, and with my relationship with God, with my relationship with myself, and with my relationship with others. And I feel like anything in between is just an attempt to reach that place of oneness that, I know inside of my cells exist. And I know that anyone that is seeking for intimacy is looking for that, and somehow the many trial of being so deeply connected to the core of beings in a moment, not even just because we know each other since a long time, not because we did a practice together, not of whatever reason, but just because we can shred off of everything and just see the essential note of core oneness, in each other, and stay with that essence, it's like, and I feel like we are all longing for that place. And we all remember that place, but in the same time, it's very scary because it feels like it requires everything from you. It requires to take off all your layers of protections, and everything needs to die, which is in between you and I. Basically, everything that we identify with so that we can have a sense of individuality needs to be put on the altar, of death. And so somehow being able to live from that core exposure requires from you that you can die to yourself in every moment. So it's like, how would it be to be in a space, to be with others, or to be with yourself or with nature, and actually totally letting go of control and allow just the mystery to move you? It's like, it's in the same way what I and most of people long for the most, and it's in the same time what are we the most terrified from. And the reason for that, it's because to me, living from the mystery constantly is a constant initiation into death. And because in our culture and societies, we haven't been initiated, and we keep avoiding, the reality of constant death. And it's not just physical death, it's like the death to yourself in every moment. we're in culture that is like injecting things on their face so that we can look younger forever, like having advertisement with baby women so that we stay in our maiden or everything. We're trying to keep alive things that are no longer alive, relationship, works, everything, so that we can just like feel that we are safe into something that is controlled by our sense of knowing. And so I feel like this retreat is an opportunity to die to that knowing constantly and take the courage and the step to face that unknown in every moment, that anyway is that, like it's like anyway you can't control a relationship, you can't control a path, a professional path, you can't control anything, but there's this illusion veil that you're trying to control everything that is on the way of our deepest longing, which is to be fully spacious, to be able to be penetrated by the magic of that mystery and being like amazed by the beauty that it is when you're in that state of bliss, where you don't expect anything, where you're so spacious that you feel like so light, fully moved and danced by life. So basically that's like that's a bit of the transmission of the space that we're gonna dive into. And for that, there are going to be many different practices, but the practices are not the goal. So it's not, it's like that's why I was with you very clear. It's like, yeah, they're going to be practices that involve touch, or practices that involve like group meeting or people meeting, but it's not about it's not a retreat where you come to connect with others in a personal way. It's not a retreat where you come to learn massage or you learn to relate with each other. Actually, it's a place where you decide in every moment to die to yourself and come like totally naked and to see what happened when that happened. It's like what happened in a space when a full group, through different practices that we're going to go through, that involve like sitting meditation, that involve silence, that involve time alone in nature, that like that will involve a lot of actually connection with the aloneness in us, with the stillness in us, so that the movement that then can come from that stillness is a movement that is not strategized or thought or controlled, by some kind of personal interest or some kind of movement that comes from fear of being alone, So yeah, that's my transmission about it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Laura. It sounds like so interesting, but in the same time it's so scary, to really stand off the edge of the darkness, to stand off the edge of unknown and to step into that. So Laura, when for example, people are thinking maybe that, okay, I'm coming to the retreat and I really stand naked off the edge of unknown. And if I'm stepping into the free-falling, this darkness, what's going to happen? Can you a little bit open up and describe for that as well?
Well, I can't, it's like you can't come on the edge of the unknown and expect to know what's going to happen. It's like it's a dichotomy in itself. So I would say, and actually someone asked me because they wanted to recommend someone to come to the retreat, and they were like, oh, this woman didn't, she's young and she hasn't done lots of work, and do you think it's appropriate for her? And my answer was, it's not about how much work you've done. It's not about how much workshop you've done. It's not about how old you are. It's about how ancient is your soul. Because when your soul is calling to that kind of work, it's like it's a remembrance it's a remembrance of the depth of your soul. So it's like your soul is longing to merge into a space of non-dual existence. So even I just want to give a little a little not definition, but like maybe yeah, little something around dark, because when we speak about darkness, and especially if people are used to work with archetypes or polarity, especially in Tantra, you know, it's like Shiva Shakti, dark, light, and all of this. So it's like we're not speaking about dark in a sense of polarity to the light. So we're not speaking about shadow work or dark archetypes or
So beyond
density.
of that, everything, right?
Exactly. So it is what it is beyond that. So and that's why we're not meeting into a polarity, but it's like when that inner polarity is like offering itself to, like you said, being on the edge of not knowing, then actually a true meeting. When I say true, it's not that there's true and untrue, but it's like a meeting where there is no agenda or no dynamic that is trying to install itself, even if it's like an archetypal dynamic, you know, because I can come in my light feminine or in my dark feminine, and suddenly whatever I'm going to have in front is going to be polarized by the energy that I'm embodying. So we're not embodying an energy. You know, it's like we actually shredding off those identities. They can be personal, or they can be also archetype identities that we have densified or calcified with to protect what is underneath that, which is this core place of intimacy where I'm nothing, you know, like I'm nothing and I'm everything at once. But that can only be a concept, or that can be experimented as a place of deep rest, of deep spaciousness. So there's nothing to expect, but in the same time, it's like, oh, so why shall we come to something that that we can't expect anything from? And that's a very different paradigm. It's not like a workshop when you come and take from, or you're going to have skills or anything. It's an experiment. It's a space where you give totally yourself, and that can only come from a deep soul call. It's like, and that's why it's like, this is a place for ancient soul that are ready to go through that threshold of even letting go of that identity of their even, soul identity, and they just want to die to themselves, so that there is a sense of deep ease and deep intimacy. And it's not an intimacy with something, it's like you become the intimacy itself, which says you can stand into the aloneness of a place of stillness and still being inclusive of everything at once. So personally, to me, that's the only place that I like meeting others or meeting life. It's like, it's when all the potentiality and the magic of life happens. And so that's the space that I'm willing to share with you there. Yeah.
Wow, it sounds so deep, like transmission, that letting go all the forms and the programs and the ego, and just falling and not knowing what's going to happen. But because usually it's very often that we know the schedule, we know the timetable, we know what we are going to expect. But as I understand, we can't expect anything, right?
No, you can't expect anything. And that's why it's important to receive that transmission and see what it may like. How do you feel when you receive that? It's like, it's a call for mystery. It's like, and I feel like any mystic, has at its core in his heart a deep longing to go back to where they belong, which means the mystery. It's like, in all our attempts to control whatever's going to happen, not just in the retreat, but like whatever's happening in my life. So let's have my schedule very plan, and like my business plan and my retirement plan, and when are we going to get married, and da 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 da, and like all of this, it's there in order to prevent you to feel the terror that lies when you are on this, event horizon, on this edge of, like you said, falling through the mystery. But only there the magic can really happen. So it's like all the efforts and time that we put into controlling everything that happens to us is actually on the way of being totally moved by life and by the mystery. And so therefore we are trying to move ourselves in order to prevent us to feel that deep terror. So, even the practices that I'm going to use, which one of the main practices is a movement meditation, is almost an embodiment of that essence. It's like, okay, how do you let the body be moved by the subtle vibration that can only emerge when you let go of you trying to move your own body, So it's like there's going to be practices that will help to have an embodied imprint of what I'm speaking about, even if at the core everyone knows what I'm speaking about, but even if it's very abstract, but it's very difficult to put into form, so to put into words formlessness, it's like that essence of formlessness. So the practice will help to have a reference point of that, but what's going to happen even in the group is a mystery. And to be honest, it's not that I have for those days a schedule of what we're going to do. I have tools of practices and that are going to be introduced in moments that are going to be the most, that it's going to emerge for the group, and it's going to depend of the group also and what the group is going to, by its constitution that is unique to that moment, see what emerge moment to moment. So, it's like you can't do a retreat on the mystery and having all your plan and knowing what time we're going to do what. It's like it's not possible. And I also want to share from a standpoint of the facilitator of that space, how terrifying is it also for me to go in spaces. And even though it's like I have been facilitating now for over a decade, I remember when I started, I was just like, very, very organized, everything I'm going to share, everything I'm going to say. And that's a very different transmission. It's a transmission of knowledge, or a transmission then where you try to bring people into a certain state, or, so you induce your own will or your own knowing towards the will or the knowing of others. But teaching from the void, it's like it's not teaching anymore. It's like the void is moving things, and so it's moving me too. So it's very terrifying also for me to come into a group with very little knowing, if not at all, of how I'm going to handle that, what is going to happen, how I'm going to, like what about the personality that lies around my teacher identity, So it's like it's also shaking my own identity of like being there. It's not that I'm coming confident, I'm going to bring you somewhere. It's like,
I have a lot of theory and everything and all the exercises and nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you are brave one.
Yeah. And it's not that I want to bring you somewhere. It's like I want to share what lies at the core of my cells, at the core of my heart. It's like I want to open that space to the group where it's a deep place where I resource and where many of us resource. And I feel like most of my spiritual quest and path has been to find a conscious pathway to that place of eternity, and it's like what I want to share. It's like this, it's like share from that place of eternity in me and hold you by my hand and going there together and see what happens. So,
yeah, wow. I feel we will going to have this kind of mystic journey all together. And of course, as you said before, this groove field or this container what we are going to create, we don't know where we are like diving together at what is the result. It's the mystical one. Thank you so much, Laura, to sharing your thoughts about the Void Retreat. But still, I'm curious about your story, because when I'm looking at you, I see this kind of a dark river flowing inside of you. You have this kind of transformational power. It's not usual in our society. So what is your story? What is your, like your wisdom? How did you came up here, and how do you represent you, and how do you feel? Can you a little bit open up your story. I have read that you have this kind of interesting past. So maybe you can open up a little bit as well.
Okay. How am I gonna answer that? I'm a former psychologist, which I'm returning actually to that job. To that, it's not a job, it's like a passion, really. It's like, but I'm returning to it with so much more access or transmission from that place of eternity that I'm speaking about, and not from a place of knowledge, you know, which was the what was at the beginning, you know, at the start of my career. So I don't know, I feel like more, but most and foremost, it's not about what I've studied, you know. It's like even lots of people ask me, oh, what can I read, which books can I read? And I'm like, I don't read books anymore. It's like, or I have to have a very deep hit for something. But it's like I'm not interested in knowledge anymore, but in this collective wisdom that we can have access to all the time, you know. It's like, and I feel like the more you can empty your vessel and the more you can just have access to wisdom that doesn't belong to anyone, contrary to knowledge. You know, knowledge has been monopolized by minds, you know, and by intellectual properties, whereas wisdom cannot be taken by anyone. So I guess, you know, experience of life, and I've been a big experimenter and explorer of many taboos and yeah, name it, name any experience, and you know, probably I've put my nose into it at one point. But yeah, you know, I also met death when I was very young. When I was 18, I had a cancer, and you know, I fought with cancer for 2 years. I was really close to death, and started to have or develop a relationship in that portal, you know. And I felt the most alive the closer I've been to death, to physical death in my life, and the most I realized that it was almost like a portal to more magic and more life and more essentialized existence. So it's like I had to make peace with the fact that to actually being totally alive, I have to become the lover not only of Eros, which is what most people are feeling lost into, you know, and especially in the tantric field. But I have to become the lover of Thanatos too, you know, of death, and having those two polarities like dancing and merging, so that actually there was space for just pure life force and magic to emerge. So yeah, that's like, I wouldn't go into all the, you know, all the steps of my life, but it's like a many different experiment and experience of life, and diving into the darkest shadow of humanity have led me to convey polarities together. You know, it's like I've met so much darkness in this life. And when I'm speaking about darkness now, it's more like the denser aspect of humanity. I met so much darkness that either I would kill myself, you know, and like suicide and not wanting to be part of this world anymore, or I had to call upon its equal polarity and pierce all of this with innocence. And so I feel like the more you can be in touch with the dichotomy of all polarities of life, and the more you find this access towards these eternal cycles, you know, that are just spinning around, but ultimately what is still is that access to eternity. And that's a place of freedom. You cannot be free of other things. It's like the only place of freedom. It's where, when you can become like this stillness and this movement at once. So that's a place where I always took refuge. And I feel like my path has been to, instead of just going and refuge into eternity and never wanting to come back into this life, which we all have experience of that. I feel like all human beings on this planet have had at least one time in their life the thought of never wanting to return, of like going to sleep and never awakening again, ever again, wanting to kill themselves, wanting to leave this world of duality that is insane. And so if you can connect with this, but taking away maybe the fear of like, oh, does that mean I'm depressed? Does that mean I'm actually suicidal? But actually embrace the love for Thanatos through that, and seeing that by welcoming Thanatos and by entertaining the relationship with that energy is the only way that you can open a portal and a conscious gateway and pathway towards that place of stillness that you know inside of you is existing at the core of everything, and not taking that path as an escape from life, but actually as a place where you can fully live because you're fully in alignment with death at every moment. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for showing up. Yeah, and actually, when you were talking about this darkness and void and your story, then I realized that in our society there is a people who are like followers, like following the rules and societies, and there is a people who are creators. And if you want to be like creator of your life, really, then you have to step on this edge and reclaim back your power, right?
Yes and no, you know, because I feel like I hear so many times, manifest your life, create the life that you want, create the and you can. And then once again, it's like you're using your will in order to touch upon the resources of universal resources, and you're trying to direct with your will towards a certain goal. And then there is a creation that comes from creation itself, and that you offer your empty vessel as just, you know, being used for life itself. And so therefore your prayer would be just use me, you know, like use me, like put me at my place. I'm giving myself to this conduct of life. And so therefore there's not an attachment or a direction towards what you want to create, but your only focus is to empty yourself of yourself, and then asking and praying for life to use your capacity to be offered on the altar of love, of life, you know. So that's the slight modification that I would have to what you just said, you know. It's like, because there's a place of me that cannot stand, you know, somehow sometimes when I hear those words and with the bypass of like, I am the creator of my own life, I'm going to take my own power. And it's like, you actually don't have individual power. If you're going to take power for yourself, you are going to be burned by it. And many people in power position knows exactly what I'm speaking about. It's like power is going to consume you if you are using it from your personal will and from your personal interest. You need to be an empty vessel for power to move through you, as, you know, an energy that shifts between empty vessels and is not frying you off, basically. So, yeah.
Wow, that's deep. Thank you so much, Laura, for opening up a little bit the retreat, the concept of void retreat. And also, it's almost like 1 month ago, and we are going to meet soon. So 4th to 8th of October, very beautiful place in Estonia. And the retreat will like include like all the vegetarian food, accommodation, and the program. So people can just come there, dive in fully, and forget everything else, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, Laura, I thank you again. It was so nice to meet you, and I wish you all the best.
Me too, and I'll see you soon.
We will see soon. Thank you so much.